Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. I have a subscribe button in the lower right corner of my screen. Thanks for like, subscribe, and share, and for hitting the like button. That helps my channel to grow. Today's date is May 8, 2025, time in Texas, about 11 a.m. Some of the things we'll cover today. Washington State dictates religion, and first contact, and China. Where are those missing millions? And President Trump aligns America to win. So let's get started. I'd like to say thank you to Leisha E for extra support for my channel. I have a Patriot subscriber talking about that recent dust-up between Pakistan and India. So we'll see how other nations react to India, Pakistan. And my Patriot subscriber had some family members that were associated with the U.S. CIA. So she has some different insights and says if the conflict between Pakistan and India goes nuclear, because they're both nuclear powers, the blast radius she's not citing the kiloton on the nuke, but the nuke blast would radiate out in a 10-mile span, and the fallout would be 15 times the height of Mount Everest. And with regard to Pakistan and India, cannot rule out bio or chem weapons being used. However, she says God is in charge, fear not, and his church is still here. So yes, I believe that too. And we have this, talking about the Church of Jesus Christ. We have a new movement now taking place in California, Baptize California. And so we see thousands of people being baptized in California, with a uniting of hundreds of churches. It's being led by Pastor Mark Francie of Ocean Church, who recently baptized in Pirates Cove in Huntington Beach, California, 4,000 plus, including Sammy the Bull Gravano. So yeah, that's the way to go. We see Californians turning to Jesus Christ. And then what do we have now happening in Washington State? According to the Independent Sentinel, Washington State the governor, Bob Ferguson, just signed a law, SB 5375, where the state of Washington State would tell priest, rabbi, imams, that's the leader of a Muslim church, plus any other leaders of any churches, that hearing confessions is not protected by law, and that any of the priests, rabbis, imams, and so on, who hear reports of child abuse, they do not have the protection of religion, and they must report those crimes. So Washington State is trying to dictate religion. And now, with regard to weather, space weather continues to be quiet. With regard to weather in the U.S. and Texas, we still have ongoing across Texas and central and eastern U.S. the possibility of thunderstorms and possible tornadoes and heavy rain. And some areas, especially along Louisiana, along the Gulf Coast, are expecting some flash flooding. And we have this, first contact. I find this very interesting. This is being reported by Dr. MACIO KAKU and CLIF High. So here's Earth, the sun, and all of our planets around us, our solar system. Now, decades ago, NASA sent out satellites, Voyager series, and it's now coming out that Voyager has learned that there's some type of barrier around the solar system, and these satellites cannot get out of our solar system, and the Voyager is being linked up with Sycamore and Willow. These are the AI quantum chips. And what Sycamore picked up from the Voyager that was at the edge of our solar system has been legitimized as being what we could euphemistically call first contact, and received a message that appears to be, that came in the form of symbols and drawings, which we would anticipate would be the basis of communication between multi-species. And it was the form of a human, outlined by geometric symbols, and that there were a few individuals with NASA who actually looked at the geometric symbol outline of a human. They looked at it on a screen, and they had altered brain activity. In other words, just looking at the human-like image outlined in geometric symbols sent from the boundaries of our solar system through the Sycamore AI chip, just looking at it changed neurologically the brains of observers. So that's going on. Now, we're not giving more details like, well, how neurologically were the human brains changed just by looking at this communication from the outer limits of our solar system. So I submit first contact. So that's going on. And now we have this. Yeah. First contact with Voyager. And it's new information to me that the Voyager satellite impacted some type of barrier around our solar system. That's new information for me, as well as the transmission of some type of message. Now, CLIF High is relating this to the movie 2001 Space Odyssey and the monolith, which is usually a metal square, has symbols on it. God directed me to put out information about monoliths. That was in the last year and a half. where it came out that, yes, suddenly, and I think about 2022, we had monoliths. These are like 3 to 4 feet wide, 6 to 8 feet tall, have symbols on them, metal, appearing all over simultaneously in the U.S. And what came forth was, Mike from around the world said, they are communication devices. Jessica Ariel Morocco said they were synchronizing reality. And God said one half of them are real. Now, also, what I've received from God in the last few days is these symbols that correlates to information I received from God probably last year, that everything we speak, write, videos we make, even pictures of us, contain our energy. So this is embedded in anything we speak, write, or pictures or images. So what I'm getting is these monoliths that appeared on Earth, and most recently correlating to ancient symbols and glyphs that are put out. What I got from God was these symbols and glyphs. We've seen them in Egypt, in Sumeria, and so on. Also contain energy embedded in the glyphs and the cuneiform and so forth by the author of those words. And the reason they were etched in stone is so that they would remain on earth. And the same principle holds for you and I, that our energy goes forth in our words and images and writing. And the energy of the authors of that ancient text and glyphs continues to impact the earth. Now, you and I can pray against that and nullify that force. So that's going on. But at any rate, messages then were coming, and presumably from space, on the monoliths we've seen placed on the earth in the last couple of years. So it's all good, and God is in charge. And now from Steve Quayle's Aggregate site, End of American Dream. All right. Now, correlating with this, and I've put out previous videos recently, have you noticed a pattern about all this new information coming out about these ancient civilizations and so on? And then we had being put forth publicly in the last few days this first contact message from Voyager via the Sycamore and Willow AI chips. I submit, and I just saw a movie, The Shooter, with Mark Wahlberg. In one part of the movie, they're showing all these FBI agents on these big helicopters, and I had a word from the Lord. When men have such power, some abuse it. And we know that. But in the movie also came forth this statement that nothing happens without the approval of the government. So government officials trying to say, oh, we didn't know, and okay, shut up. Now we have this coming forth from Catherine Austin Fitts. She served a position under the Bush administration. She's an economist. Talking about the trillions of dollars the U.S. has spent on building underground bunkers, not for you and I, but for continuity of government and so on. But what we're seeing with our own lying eyes, what we're hearing with our own lying ears, is a former federal government official making a public statement. And I believe she was interviewed on Tucker Carlson. And it comes out there's a network of underground bunkers in the U.S. So it's 170 bunkers. And they're a network, all connected. They have magnetic trains connecting them. They're located in some places like near Washington, D.C., Mount Weather, in Colorado, Cheyenne Mountain. And Catherine Austin Fitz brought this out. It's a network of 170 bunkers that are connected. And yeah, it's all secret. But now it's coming out. So I submit it goes along with that first contact message. And now we have this. I want to cover this. So we're seeing President Trump putting forth tariff war. And we see strong indicators from China that immediately, with the U.S. putting tariffs on, the economy of China was crashing. And citizens were out in the streets protesting from Shanghai to Mongolia. Now, many sources are coming out and saying there are missing millions in the Chinese population. Instead of being 1.2 billion, it appears to be much, much less, with about 400 million missing. And this is being put forth by population numbers. I submit this. China, beginning in the 1970s, put forth the one-child policy. In other words, families could only have one child. Now, this violates basic population rules. You have a father, mother, and they should be reproducing 2 children just to maintain the size of the population. If you're only producing 1 child, then you are taking your population down generation by generation. China, I believe, also violated genetics and also population rules. Genetics. So the one-child policy in China said to keep the male child and to do away with the female child, so that over generations you have something like millions of Chinese men and no females to mate with them. But what you also do by getting rid of, so your population should be 50-50 male and female. In China, we're seeing about 60%, and this would be an optimistic look at male to female ratio. Now, what you do by getting rid of the females is you break the mother line. Humans inherit 2 different types of DNA. We inherit nuclear DNA, that's from the father and the mother. The second type we inherit is the mother line that comes to us through mitochondria and is passed through the females. Great-grandmother to grandmother to mother to daughter, granddaughter, great-granddaughter, and so on. Mitochondria is embedded in all cells and has to do with energy and vitality and protects against such things as mutations and so on. China, through its policy of doing away with a significant percentage of females in its population, has broken that mother line within its genetics of its population. I submit China has practically destroyed its own population by, number one, restricting not even replacement population of having 2 children. Now, they did change that rule from 1 child to 2 children in 2016, but I submit it's too late, because during the course of decreasing the size of their population, they also have broken the important mother line running through their population and have significantly decreased the vitality and the fertility of the existing Chinese population. So that's going on. I believe China, CCP, communists, godless communists, have done themselves in. Yeah. So that's going on. And now we have this. Yeah, we're getting reports. So I had reports from Mr. MBB333 JWTV Plus that falling, and we know that DARPA, a part of the Department of Defense, has been dropping chemtrails. This came out from President Trump's Secretary of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy Jr., that it is DARPA who is responsible for the chemtrails. Okay. What's coming out now is blue rain being documented and videoed as falling, and having questions about what is in this blue rain. It's being seen in the U.S., was seen in Texas, in Leander, Texas, and in California. And it's seen in puddles, and in California was seen in hot tubs, and this happened April 26. And JWTV is talking about what's inside this blue rain. And some are putting forth that it contains heavy metals, aluminum, and so forth. The stuff we're seeing, have traditionally seen in chemtrails. And also, it's being detected that DARPA, so here's the Earth. DARPA has some type of project they're doing with satellites above the Earth and putting forth some type of frequency. So we see what is the U.S. government up to. And with this blue rain falling, I'll try to link some videos for you because you can see it with your own lying eyes. Something's wrong. So that's being put forth. And now we have this, that, President Trump, with regard to DARPA and what's going on, signed a new executive order about bioweapons talking about gain of function. Now, gain of function. Gain of function. This means you take something into a lab and you change it, and anytime this happens, always 100%, you are making a bioweapon. Now, we had information coming out that was from DECODE, and many of us are familiar with the fact that our U.S. military are fighting creatures in underground bunkers. Many of these are fallen angels, Nephilim, plus they engage in genetic changes to humans. And what came out was that there was some U.S. military, and they went into an underground bunker, and they met this individual who looked like a spider woman, and she could project into their minds that she was human, and she had been changed by the Nephilim into this, they just injected something into her body that changed the outside of her body, looked like a spider. And she projected into their mind of the U.S. military what it felt like and what they had done. And she said, "Kill me." And I believe they did. She wanted her soul to return to God. But at any rate, the U.S. military who encountered this situation were gravely injured mentally. And so it's coming out, more and more reports that, yes, med beds are real, and they are being used by the U.S. military to heal both soldiers and the individuals they are rescuing from these underground bunkers. So that's going on. So President Trump had signed an executive order outlawing gain of function bioweapons. So that's going on. And I believe President Trump had mentioned something about a Wuhan lab in China, which we heard about in 2020. And I noticed that Bobby Kennedy Jr., Secretary of Health and Human Resources, is now passing government mandates that Big Pharma, if they're putting forth a pharma for the arm, they do have to document and engage in actual testing. Yeah, like we did in the past, yes. And now we have this. So what's going on? We see in Europe. So in Europe, we have France, Germany, Romania, and I've put forth recently some commie moves by the government with regard to elections. And now we have this coming out from ALRX CHRISTEFEROU in Romania. So they recently had a second vote in May, and the citizens of Romania elected George Simeon. He's a protege of Colin Georgescu, and he received the majority of the vote. There will be a second vote on May 18. And we have Europe, the EU, coming against Simeon now because he represents the vote of the people. The EU wants all European governments to be controlled by their government leaders and not have those leaders elected by the nation's citizens. So that's going on. Yeah. And we have this. I have a Patriot subscriber who says, yes, we are awake to evil and the mainstream media. And she says, I find the three main TV channels to be boring. And I understand tariffs now, and I support tariffs. So many of my close friends still have deaf ears. So yeah, that's going on. And we have this. I have a Patriot subscriber who says, yeah, I'm hooked into Nielsen ratings, and I don't watch ABC, NBC, CBS. I do watch Newsmax, America's Voice, OAN, and Fox News. Yeah. So it's good. Oh, A Truth by Billie Beene, for sure. I have a Patriot subscriber. Yeah, she's talking about the Chinese population. Leaks are something about 400 million. Either the Chinese population now equals 400 million, or they cannot account for a drop in their population of 400 million. Yeah, and it makes sense with the one-child policy they've had in place since the 1970s. Yes. I have a Patriot subscriber. In Germany, we're seeing a replay of Germany from 1935, and they will outlaw Christian churches again and eliminate rights of people. So, yeah. We do see Europe going commie. And I have a Patriot subscriber. I watch little TV and movies. And for news, I get it from YouTube and Fox News. Okay. And I have this talking about the Schumann correlating with many people having brain fog. So now the Schumann is the natural vibration of the earth. Historically, it's been 7.83 hertz per second. With changes in space, impacts on the sun, we see this surging to 40 to 50, which impacts human, animal, and plant health. And this Patriot subscriber is saying, yes, with the Schumann surges, I'm experiencing brain fog. I have a Patriot subscriber. We watch Roku cable. Cable is too much money, and the antenna is not good because we're between two hills. So they watch Roku. Yeah, American citizens watching TV and internet has been changing. I have a Patriot subscriber on Rumble. The mineral deal, this is between the U.S. and Ukraine, or not. The U.S. should not be sending weapons to any nation against Christian values. I agree, because I brought that out recently. Ukraine, led by Zelensky, the actor puppet for the deep state, yeah, closed down traditional Christian churches in Ukraine, Antichrist. So my Patriot subscriber says, we shouldn't be supporting any nation who engages in these actions against Christians. I have a Patriot subscriber talking about chemtrails in California, and it's like there's a biofilm over houses and more. I have a Patriot subscriber talking about Washington. Yeah, talking about, and this correlates to a previous video I put out about the Keir Starmer, the apparent commie leader of UK. So we have Africa, we have an island, Mauritius, and we have Diego Garcia Island. Now, half of this is a military base by UK and the other half by the US. And for some reason, Keir Starmer just believes he can give away a US strategic military base to this island, Mauritius. Now, I put forth in a recent video, it comes out, this is controlled by the CCP. So we see Keir Starmer most likely lining his pockets. Now I have a Patriot subscriber who says, I wondered why the mayor of Washington, D.C. was under investigation for receiving money from Mauritius. But now I see it's because Mauritius is controlled by the CCP. Yeah, so we see bits and pieces coming out. And now we have this from CNN talking about Secretary of Defense, President Trump, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, putting in place efforts to cut the number of generals in the military. And I have heard for years from multiple sources that there are simply too many generals. The U.S. military is top heavy with generals and not enough soldiers. So it comes out, Pete Hegseth to cut 20% of 1-star to 4-star generals and flag officers by 10%. Currently, we have generals and flag officers 900. And that includes, as of 2023, 37 4-star generals. And I've heard many comparisons between the number of generals we have now, all the way back to World War II, when we had a very few, and we fought a war. So cuts are going to be made, and they're also going to cut 20% of the National Guard general officers. So that's going on. And we have this from Reuters. President Trump cuts money to go to gain-of-function labs to produce bioweapons. He signed an executive order Monday, and he calls it dangerous, and he bans U.S. money to China, Iran, and other nations who are engaging in gain-of-function bioweapons, and also talked about bat coronavirus in China that was put in place by money from the U.S. via Echo Health, and in China by the Wuhan lab. It's amazing how much truth is coming out. And also that all NIH research money is on hold. Yeah, so that's going on. Yeah. And on Facebook came out that, oh, you know, we need some new conspiracy theories because the old ones, they've all been proven to be true. I agree, 100%. Now, we're experiencing some earthquakes in some interesting places. So we've got the U.S., Mexico, down to Central America, South America. We have the North American tectonic plate. We've got in this area the Costco's plate, Costco's, which is very important for the U.S. So we had a large earthquake a few days ago in this area, like a 5.8. That was 200 miles deep. And it's impacting, so we have this plate, another Caribbean plate, we've got Costco's. Now, Mike from around the world has said that all earthquakes, wherever they're located on the earth, will impact the Costco's plate. This is an important plate to keep up with. It's located right about here, adjacent to the U.S., California, Mexico, because it's anticipated that a significant jolt to the Costco's plate will then gin up fault lines in California, including the San Andreas. So that's going on. And now we have this from Daily Caller. U.S. manufacturing orders are up, and this is a direct result of President Trump's tariff war, and that one company saying they like President Trump's tariff rule is Juergen's Tool Maker, located in the U.S. Midwest. Their orders are dramatically up since President Trump came out with the tariff rule, and they are ginning up their production 24/7. Another company commenting is Grand River Rubber and Plastics, and they're saying that their work is dramatically up since President Trump came out with the tariff rule, and they expect their annual income to be up this year by $5 million. A positive result of President Trump's tariff war. And we say, bring it, President Trump. And now we have this. So we have more information coming out from President Trump's Secretary of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy Jr., about DARPA and the chemtrails. So, Bobby Kennedy Jr. came out with public information, and President Trump has put in place a task force to address chemtrails. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. says the chemtrails are put forth by DARPA, a division of the Department of Defense, with the purpose to depopulate the U.S. through the use of heavy metals in rain and also sterilizing agents in groundwater, toxins for farmland, and also DARPA is aided by certain individuals in the EPA and NOAA. And we know it's going to take President Trump time to root out the deep state infiltrators. And President Trump moves to declassify documents that have to do with audits for DARPA. And the DARPA documents that will be declassified cover climate engineering, pest control, and their cover to use bioweapons on the U.S. population, and their cover is to call it climate engineering, or pest control. So RFK Jr. has a project to address these issues. President Trump is dismantling the deep state, and the storm is on, according to Benjamin Fulford. So yeah, we do see that going on. And now we have this. DeCode's aggregate site, Liberty Daily. Okay, what is President Trump also doing to help average American citizens? Now, Tina Peters had been a Colorado election official, and the state of Colorado said she was guilty of protecting election results under federal guidelines. Well, that's what she legally was supposed to do because it was a nationwide federal election. So the deep state-controlled state court system convicted her, saying she violated election rules. And so President Trump orders and found her guilty and to put her in jail for 9 years. She's 69 years old. President Trump orders the release of Tina Peters, put in jail by a rogue Colorado AG, Phil Weiser. So that's going on. She's a Gold Star mother, 69 years old. Yes. And what she did by protecting the election results that she protected according to the federal guidelines that she was required by law to do is it exposed dim voter fraud. That's why she was put in jail. Tina Peters, political prisoner. Yeah. So President Trump has directed his DOJ release Tina Peters. So that's going on. And now we have this. We have what's going on. Yeah. So in a recent interview on Fox News, Elon Musk with Jesse Waters, talking about the sun's threat to the earth and a plan by President Trump and the U.S. government to colonize Mars. And NASA plans to be on Mars within a few years and to colonize. And NASA's budget is being shifted to explore space. And we have this, Elon Musk. Yes, he's going to send up a satellite containing Tesla Optimus robots to Mars. And then, if all goes well, it is the U.S. plan to put humans on Mars by 2029. And in Texas, near Boca Chica, it's right at the tip of Texas. So we have Texas coming down like this, right in this area. Elon Musk is putting a location to build a star base. And we say, bring it. Wow, that's got to bring billions of dollars and thousands of jobs. Okay, we have to Texas. And we have this from Dr. William Mount. The economy is, he's putting this forth that I don't believe the U.S. economy is contracting. I believe we're just on the brink of seeing a catastrophic expansion of the U.S. economy. But he's correct. When nations, and I believe he's talking about Europe, the European nations have engaged in policies that didn't bring up their economy to strengthen their economy. And so now their economy in Europe is contracting. So traditionally, what nations do when their economy is breaking, they go to war. It doesn't make sense, but that's history does record that. And so we also see in Kiev threatening to send drones to attack world leaders in Moscow today during a victory parade celebrating the victory of Russia and other nations in World War II. So that's going on. And Catherine Austin Fitts said the U.S. government has spent $21 trillion to build underground bunkers for the, not for me and thee, but for themselves. Yes. And we have this from New York Prepper. Yeah, just a few days ago along Texas, we had the Texas Gulf of America. I'll show you. Something's going on. We have Florida, Texas. We have Mexico, Gulf of America. Now, we've had something going on there for quite a while. And New York Prepper reported, I believe this was about 2 days ago, we had over Gulf of America, we had several nuke sniffers. We had several P-8 Poseidons there to locate, I believe, subs. We had some over the Gulf of America and down to Florida. We had a doomsday plane up. Yeah, so that's going on. So the P-8 can detect nukes and also any nuke sniffers, any form of radiation. Yeah, so that's going on. We do see things happening. It's good to remember God is in charge. And with regard to, so we know we have things going on in the Middle East. So we have Israel, Iran. We have the U.S., Diego Garcia Island. We have now increased, I think we have 6 to 10 B-1 stealth bombers in the past couple of days. We now sent 4 B-52 strategic bombers to Diego Garcia. We see Yemen, the Houthis, who are a proxy for Iran, hitting the Ben Gurion airport in Israel. Then we saw Israel hitting the Sana'a airport in Yemen. So that's going on. And we have this, the IRGC, that's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard in Iran, has an underground ammo depot was hit inside Iran May 6. And the U.S., yes, moved now a total of 4 B-52s to Diego Garcia. So that's going on. And we have this, that India and Pakistan, all right. So now we have, in this area, we've got Pakistan and India. They're both nuclear powers. They've been engaging in a dust-up since about Monday. Today's Thursday. Pakistan says it shot down 5 Indian fighters. And India says it sank a Pakistan Navy ship. And they're both claiming to have killed hundreds of each other's troops across the Kashmir border area. So that's going on. And India has cut off water to Pakistan. So we don't know how this is going to go, but larger nations, now China is siding with Pakistan, the U.S. with India, are trying to use diplomatic means to talk this situation down. So we'll see. We have this from Real Raw News. Marines seize a huge collection of ammo and weapons from a rogue FEMA group. They actually are FEMA operatives, but they were unknown, or their positioning of weapons store was unknown to Homeland Security. Christy Noam. So this is like a rogue FEMA group who were amassing ammo and weapons. And they were hit Sunday, May 5 by the Marines. And I believe this happened in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And the Marines recovered 1,650 CAR-15 auto rifles, 2,203 handguns plus, and stacks of thousands of rounds of ammo. So it's believed the White Hats have stopped a deep state plot that was designed to take down inside the U.S. commercial planes. So yeah, I understand there was a shootout, so we'll have to see where this goes. Now we have this from Hal Turner. Ukraine threatens to send drones over Russia during the Victory Day parade. And we also, he reports that inside Ukraine, today's Thursday, parade's going on. Wednesday and Tuesday, high-level Ukraine government officials and their families were fleeing Kiev. And it's believed that the Ukraine military may try to put drones or bombs over the Victory Day parade in Russia. And Russia said, if that happens, then we'll use an Oreshnik to target Kiev. So, apparently some high-level Ukrainian government officials believe that Ukraine was going to do this, and they got out of Dodge. So, yeah, the world is like, every morning you can wake up and wonder, who's in charge? Who's on first? And now we have this. Ron Partain of Untold History recently interviewed Dr. Jim Willie, PhD economist from Costa Rica, and received Jim reveals some U.S. military intel that Gitmo in Cuba, the U.S. prison, is full, and that President Trump, in his first term in Cuba, so here's Florida, Cuba. We do have on the backside of Cuba, Gitmo, a U.S. prison. President Trump, during his first term, enlarged Gitmo. And information is now coming out that these area prisons inside Gitmo go down at least 10 stories. And they're huge and can contain thousands of prisoners. And they go down 10 stories. There's 2 to 3 facilities. And that currently going on at Gitmo in Cuba per day. 12 U.S. military tribunals or trials simultaneously, and that med beds are being used by both the U.S. military and for the people they rescue from underground bunkers. So that's going on. And that these med beds include technology that can regenerate organs and limbs. Yeah. And the med beds are also being used for memory wipes. Yeah. So that's going on. And we have this from Money Talks News. President Trump signed an executive order Tuesday, and the presidential federal elections, citizens have to show a citizen ID that demonstrates they are American citizens in order to vote. And President Trump puts out the states that don't go along with this will lose federal election money. Yeah, money often is the key to bring people to the table. And we have this from Times of India. President Trump was recently on TV and he had a meeting with Mark Carney, the new leader of Canada, this week. And also during this public meeting with Mark Carney, leader of Canada, President Trump said the Houthis had agreed to stop hitting ships. So that's going on. Now, I understand that some of the questions President Trump wanted to ask Mark Carney, the leader of Canada, is why is the U.S. giving every year $200 billion to Canada? What's the purpose of giving that to Canada? To support Canada's government. And the U.S. is currently providing to Canada free U.S. military defense. See, we know President Trump has said to Europe and members of NATO, you need to pony up your money. You're required to pay 2 to 3% of their annual GDP, or the U.S. is not going to defend you. So now, why is the U.S. supporting and paying for both the government of Canada and the defense of Canada? I believe that needs to change. So a short prayer. I'll use the modified prayer of General Patton in World War II because I believe it's applicable. Father, we come to you in the name of Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and we ask that you grant us fair weather for battle, that you guide us victory to victory, and that you crush our enemies, domestic, foreign, and off-world. And we thank you, God the Father, God the Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and God the Holy Spirit. I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge, and He is on the move. I love you, and I'll see you soon.